Someone asks you, "What are you doing for your birthday?" And before they even finish the sentence, you already feel it, that small knot in your chest. Because the honest answer is complicated. You want it to be special. You want the people you love to remember without being reminded. You want to feel, at least for one day, that you matter a little more than usual. And when that doesn't happen exactly the way you imagined, something inside you shifts. Not dramatically, just quietly, like a door closing in a room nobody else noticed was open. And then comes the guilt. Because you're an adult, you're supposed to be past this. You're supposed to smile and say, "It's fine, it's just a birthday." But it's not fine. And deep down, you know it's never really just a birthday. If that sounds familiar, you're not needy, you're not immature, you're not too sensitive, and you're definitely not alone. Researchers have studied exactly this, and what they found says something profound about how certain minds are wired to connect, to seek belonging, and to measure love through the small, specific moments that most people don't even notice they're creating. This video was made for you. The first group is the one most people misread entirely. These are people who don't just want attention on their birthday, they need it to feel that their relationships are real. Not because they're insecure in a simple way, because of something that was shaped long before they had the words to describe it. Attachment researcher John Bowlby spent decades studying how early bonds between children and caregivers shape the way adults seek reassurance throughout their lives. He called it attachment theory. People who grew up in environments where affection was inconsistent, present sometimes, absent others, warm one day and distant the next, developed what researchers call anxious attachment. For these people, a birthday isn't just a celebration, it's a test, a moment where the people around them either show up or don't, and the result of that test gets filed away, not consciously, but deeply, as evidence of how much they are truly valued. So when someone forgets, or shows up half-heartedly, or sends a generic message at 11 p.m., it doesn't just sting in the moment. It confirms a fear that's been quietly living in the background for years. Maybe I don't matter as much as I thought. And the hardest part? These people rarely say that out loud. They just get a little quieter, a little more distant, and file it away with everything else. The second group looks different on the surface. These people wouldn't describe themselves as needing validation. They'd say they just love celebrating. They love the energy, the gathering, the feeling of everyone being in the same room at the same time. And that's true. But researcher Brené Brown from the University of Houston spent years studying belonging and connection. One of her core findings is this: there's a critical difference between belonging and fitting in. Fitting in is adjusting yourself to be accepted. Belonging is being accepted as you already are. And some people use birthdays as the one day a year where they feel permission to ask for belonging openly, without apology, without shrinking, without pretending they don't need it. Because on every other day, asking to be celebrated feels selfish. Asking to be seen feels like too much. But on a birthday, there's a social contract that says, today it's allowed. For them, the birthday isn't about ego. It's not about attention for the sake of attention. It's about finally having a socially acceptable reason to say, without shame, I need to feel seen today. And when that need is met, when someone actually shows up fully, not out of obligation, but out of genuine care, it doesn't make them weak. It fills something that's been quietly running on empty. And that matters more than most people realize. And then there's the third group, the most self-aware of all, and often the most quietly exhausted. These are people who know exactly what they need. They've thought about it. They've replayed past birthdays in their heads and identified precisely what was missing. They've even tried to communicate it in their own way. But somewhere along the line, they learned that asking for what you need on your birthday makes you seem difficult, high maintenance, too much. So they stopped asking out loud.
They started dropping hints instead, subtle ones, a comment here, a story shared there. And when the hints went unnoticed, they didn't get angry. They just felt something worse than disappointment. They felt invisible, like they were speaking a language nobody around them had bothered to learn. Psychologist Marshall Rosenberg, creator of nonviolent communication, identified that unmet needs don't just disappear when we stop expressing them. They go underground. They transform, slowly, almost invisibly, into resentment, emotional distance, and a quiet erosion of the connection that used to feel solid. These people don't need a grand gesture. They don't need a surprise party or an expensive gift. They need to feel that someone paid attention, that someone noticed the small things they mentioned in passing, that someone cared enough to try, not perfectly, but genuinely. But before we go further, I need to take you somewhere. You're young, maybe 9, maybe 10. It's the morning of your birthday. You wake up earlier than usual. There's something different in your body, a kind of electric alertness that doesn't need an alarm. You go downstairs and you watch. You watch the faces. You watch the timing. You watch to see if anyone remembers before you have to say anything. Because you want it to happen naturally, spontaneously, without a reminder, without a prompt. Because if you have to tell them, it doesn't count the same way. It means they remembered the date, not you. And maybe they did remember. Maybe everything went exactly right. Or maybe there was a pause, just long enough for you to notice, before someone said something. That pause, that tiny, almost invisible moment of silence. Psychologist James Pennebaker from the University of Texas studied how small emotional moments in childhood create what he called narrative anchors, specific reference points the brain returns to automatically when processing similar situations in adulthood. That morning is still in you, the way the kitchen smelled, the sound of the house before anyone spoke. Every birthday since then, some part of you is still standing at the bottom of those stairs, still watching, still waiting to see if anyone remembers first, still hoping that this year the pause won't come. And here's where it gets uncomfortable, because not everyone in this group is operating from a healthy place. Psychologist Robert Cialdini, in his research on social influence and reciprocity, found that some people use celebrations, including birthdays, as loyalty tests, not to feel loved, but to rank people, to sort them, to see who shows up and who doesn't, and to use that data to confirm a story they've already decided is true. If your birthday consistently leaves you feeling betrayed, even when people tried, even when they showed up in their own imperfect way, the question worth sitting with isn't, why don't they care enough? It's something harder. What am I actually looking for that no birthday will ever be able to give me? Because sometimes the need isn't for a better celebration. It's for something that has to be built, slowly, quietly, across ordinary days, not delivered in a single moment once a year. That's not a criticism. That's an invitation to look somewhere new. Only you know if it applies. Only you know the answer. Maybe we've been taught that needing things from people is a weakness, that the most evolved version of a person is someone who needs nothing, expects nothing, and is never disappointed. But that's not strength. That's isolation dressed up in self-sufficiency. Needing to feel loved on your birthday doesn't make you fragile. It makes you someone who hasn't given up on connection, someone who still believes that the people around them are capable of showing up fully, intentionally, without being asked twice. And that belief, even when it's been tested, even when it's been bruised, even when it's been quietly packed away after one too many quiet birthdays, is one of the most quietly courageous things a person can hold on to. Because it means you haven't closed, you're still open, still hoping, still willing to be surprised. If you've ever felt too much on your birthday, you belong to a group the world calls needy and science calls deeply human. the ones who still believe that love should be visible, that it should show up, that it should remember. Drop a comment with the one thing you actually wish someone would do for your birthday. No judgment, just honesty. If this resonated, subscribe. The next video is about something that might finally explain why the people closest to you still don't quite get you, even when they're genuinely trying.